Welcome to People Doing Good for Others, where we praise and celebrate and hold in the light wonderful people who are truly making significant differences in our communities. I'm Gary York, and I'm grateful to be here. And we want to thank Wilkes Communications, RiverStreet Productions, and 100.9 WIFM for this opportunity. And thank you for being with us today. My featured guest is Gerald Lankford. He's a lifelong advocate here, a person who went to West Wilkes High School, went away to college, and he's a tremendous person about knowledge. He's an outstanding member of the North Wilkesboro Rotary Club, his wife Linda, and 8 grandchildren, and he's just a resource beyond compare. And I'm grateful that Gerald Lankford is here, and so welcome.
Thank you very much.
And I want
My honor to be here.
I want you to start by just sharing this community and getting started, if you will, Gerald Lankford.
Thank you very much. I was born and grew up on Route 4 North Wilkesboro on a little farm. My daddy, we were very poor, but at the time we didn't know that. And we had a little farm, and we grew cows and hogs and chickens, and we had horses. And we took that little farm, which was 11 acres, and made a pretty good living out of it. My daddy also worked at the furniture factories in North Wilkesboro through those years. And along the way, he learned that if he could grow a few chickens, he could make some extra money. We started out with a chicken, and this was not only going on in my area, in my farm, on our little farm, but this was going on all over the county. The chicken business, for whatever reason, and I don't know the reason for that, decided to grow and come up in Wilkes County. That didn't happen everywhere, but it did happen here. And my daddy got a little house that held 500 chickens, and he bought baby chicks and fed those chickens and grew them out. Grew them out to be adults. It took 12 or 14 weeks for that to happen then. Now that can happen in 7 weeks.
Right.
And but we grew chickens, and we would take those chickens to market and sell them, and then we would have a little extra money.
Now, where did you take them?
Well, we took them either to the processing plant here, or a truck would come and buy them from us and take them to either Hickory or Charlotte or Winston-Salem. And that was for us. That started the chicken business. He made enough money working at the furniture factory and trading cows and trading horses to get to build him a chicken house that held 1,000. And so we were bigger, and we got the baby chicks. We grew them out, and we would contact somebody like Fred Lovett, and he would come by in his truck and get those chickens and buy them from us and take them to market. And that kind of thing went right along. We grew until we had the next thing. We had 2,000, a house that held 2,000 chickens, and that continued. And my daddy worked at the furniture factory. And the kids and my mama, we all helped, and we grew those chickens. And then by the early 50s, this all really came into being after the Second World War was over.
Okay.
All of that entrepreneurial stuff in Wilkes County came into being after that. And
Gerald, go back to West Wilkes High School and just a little bit of what life was about. Did you go to school, come home and work on the farm? Just a little bit about that farm, if you will.
My daddy,
his name?
His name was Ken Lankford.
Okay.
And the most important thing in his life was to make sure that me and my brothers and my sisters knew how to work. He always said, now you'll learn how to have fun along the way, but I want to make sure you know how to work. And he for some reason fell in love with football in the early years, in the early 50s, when Washington Redskins was playing on TV and that kind of thing. And so me and my brother was able to play football, and we didn't have to work during football practice, of course, but every other time in the week and every other time in the year, we had to be home working in the chicken houses. And during my time at West Wilkes, the brand new school was built.
Right.
And I graduated in the first class at West Wilkes that went to that school in 1957. And so there was lots of times when we would go to school and be home and work in the summers and make sure that we got all that done.
Gerald Lankford is my featured guest today, and we're going to concentrate on the poultry, the start of the beginning of the poultry industry as we know it here today. And so you went from West Wilkes to, did you say
Mars Hill.
Mars Hill, played football there?
Played football there. But then let's go back and catch up a little bit on the chicken business.
Good.
Fred Lovett graduated from high school sometime around 1950, maybe 47, 48. And he borrowed enough money from his daddy to buy a truck. And he hired a guy, and they went around to farms like I was talking about a minute ago and caught chickens and took them to market. Now, the processing plant at Wilkesboro came into being in the 40s, early 40s, as an economic development project for Wilkesboro, and they operated that plant, and then they hired people to come in and operate it, and then their idea was to sell that plant to other people, and they in fact done that. But back to Fred Lovett, he bought chickens from my farm and hundreds of other farms on a daily basis when the chickens matured and were growed out. And he would take them and sell them at Wilkesboro plant, or he would take them to Hickory. To a processing plant. He would take them to Charlotte to a processing plant there, or to Winston-Salem. And he started his business that way. And later in the 50s and late 50s, he was in the chicken business, growing, catching chickens, bringing them to market. And then he bought an interest in the processing plant at Wilkesboro, and started learning how to operate a processing plant. And then he had other businesses, his other brothers. There was eight of those Lovett kids. And they had live production operations. They had part interest in feed mills. They had part interest in transportation, trucking. They owned an ice plant. They had all the things, ingredients, and all of these hatcheries and all of these people were operating independently of each other, and each person was competing against each other.
So the feed now, it came on rails. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, the feed mill, there was a feed mill here in Wilkesboro that you just buy corn and soybean and vitamins and minerals, and that they ground that up and made the feed right here in Wilkesboro. But going back to there was two brothers by the name of Ed and Harry Hedeker. Now, Harry Hedeker was an expert on running processing plants, and they hired him to come here to run this processing plant, and then his brother Ed Hedeker knew how to hatch chickens and knew how to make feed, and so he came and right across the street from where the plant is now, where that convenience store is, where Glenn's Tastee-Freez, all that area right there was where Ed Hedeker had a feed mill, a hatchery, and a live production operation. And he put chickens out to people in the area, and they grew them out, And then
So that was the start of how we know it today,
right,
kind
that's
of?
how we know it today. But back to what happened with the chicken business. Late in 1963, Fred Levitt and his family and a lot of other people, hatcheries, feed mills, and all that. They were 16 different companies that Fred got together as he was the leader, and he put it together as Holly Farms Industries, and they all put together as they all merged it together as one, and that was the beginning of the Holly Farms, and that went on from there.
Now, when did you come back from college? Did you go work there?
I did. I graduated from college in 1965.
Okay.
And went to work at Holly Farms then, and worked there for 35 years after that. During that time, it's an interesting process. In 1965, Holly Farms was made up of one processing plant. And
What was in that first? Give us an idea, just a little bit about. They just would kill the chickens and
they kill the chickens and pick the feathers off, and they would pack those chickens in boxes and ice them down and send them to market like that.
Okay.
The grocer would take them out and package them or sell them just like that. And the supermarket, the housewife would get a chicken that was wet and
Okay.
water
Okay.
draining out of it,
Yeah.
and take it home and
Yeah.
cook it.
How about the Holly Farms brand, the name? Can you share that with us?
Yeah, the Holly Farms brand began to surface in the mid '60s, and we were of a high quality of chicken, and we became known as a good brand of chicken. And during the middle years of the '60s, there was a guy by the name of Bob Montgomery, and hooked up with Fred Levitt, and they decided they had come up with an idea to change the way that chickens was marketed. Chickens were marketed as the ice pack, and the new idea was to pre-package that product in the plant and put it out to the grocer so that he could take it out of that box without any ice, without any water, put it on his shelf. We would already have it labeled and priced and everything, and that was called Holly Pack or Chill Pack. And that process is still known today and still used
You
today.
started right here.
Started right here. We had one plant here, the plant at Wilkesboro, and we bought another plant very soon in 1965 or so, and at Richmond, Virginia, and that plant was operating, but we redone that plant, remodeled that plant, and put cut up lines and packaging lines into that plant, and also done the same thing at the Wilkesboro plant so that we could bring this Holly Pack into being. Our first big customer for Holly Pack was Kroger stores in the Northeast, and that is how we changed the way that chickens was marketed tremendously in the 1960s.
Gerald?
And that propelled Holly Farms brand. That propelled Holly Farms idea of being a real quality operation, and that's what put us into growing. We bought a plant at Richmond, as I said. Then we built a plant at Temperancefield, Virginia. Then we bought the plant at Monroe, North Carolina, and then we bought the plant in Harrisonburg, Virginia, and we bought a plant in Shelbyville, in Center, Texas, and bought another plant in Seguin, Texas. And we had plants strategically located so that we could serve the markets in the Northeast we could serve the markets in the Midwest, and we could send that chicken all the way to the West Coast.
Gerald Lankford, what an interesting moment for us here that a person who is right in the middle of it can sit with me today and tell me, I'm really interested in the innovative drive behind what was going on that you just got better and better. Tell us about the innovation that was happening. You were right there.
I was right there. It was kind of a natural thing. Fred Lovett was the most interesting person I ever knew. He was an entrepreneurial of the highest order. He thought,
and a good man.
And a good man. He thought years ahead of his time, and he put together these companies to form Holly Farms. And then he came
and worked together. 16 companies worked
together. And they were all people that had been competitors against each other. The hatcheries, the feed mill, the live production operation, trucking companies, plant that produced ice. All of those companies worked against each other in some regards because they were competitors. He put them all together and made one company. And that company is still today. I mean, the roots of that is still producing chicken for the consumer of America to a tremendous tune.
Yeah.
He was a very innovative person. He never slowed down. He was always going strong and always thinking way ahead of all the rest of us.
So the industry of the big ultra-modern houses we see today all around started right here with Fred Lovett asking people to come together to be one and not many.
Right.
Is that the way it was?
That's the way it was. But of course, there was other people like Don Tyson in Arkansas and different people all over the country where after the war was over in 1945 and all the people come back here and started different kind of companies and different kind of operations, they needed chicken. And chicken is the best protein that you can have. Chicken, it can be produced enormously cheaper than pork or beef, either one. And so there was a tremendous need for chicken, and those people took advantage of that.
Is it time for us to talk about the Tysons coming to town? Do you remember then?
Yeah, I remember that very well. In the late '80s, we had become very good. Holly Farms had. We had our name was well known all over the country.
You told me it was the number one that pack, the Holly pack was the most respected part of this industry.
Fresh chicken in the country at the time, without question. But we had by the late '80s, and I've left out a lot of stuff, but anyway, we became a public company. Our stock was traded on the New York Stock Exchange, and Don Tyson was a private company, and so he could arrange all kinds of different loans and all kinds of different ways of buying other companies, and he bought some other companies, and he decided that he was going to buy Holly Farms. And he at the time that he decided that, our stock was selling for like $25 a share. And it took him a year and a half to get that done. By the time that he was able to buy Holly Farms, the stock had gone to $77 a share. And so Don Tyson paid $77 a share for the stock at Holly Farms. And so that made a lot of good people in Wilkes County a little better off than it was before that. But it also showed what a value Holly Farms was. And that that has been Holly Farms plants. All of them are still operating that we had at that time as Tyson's plants, and the chicken business has nothing but grown tremendously in the past, 20, 30 years.
What were you doing in your career there? Give us some idea.
Well, I worked in human resources. I was the human resources plant manager at Wilkesboro, and then later on I became the personnel director company wide, and later on, before Tyson bought us, my boss was Bonnie Rhodes, who was a sister to Fred Levitt. And she retired, and then I became.
Really? A lady was the CEO?
No, she was in charge of personnel.
Okay.
Yeah, and she is my boss. And after she retired, I became the senior vice president of human resources at Holly Farms. And then after that, Tyson bought us, and then I became a divisional personnel manager for Tyson, and worked for another 10 years for them.
Tell us about the community advocacy of this Levitt company, which the great brand. I know they must have just contributed time and time again to make things better. Can you talk about that?
For sure. They were a very entrepreneurial company, and they shared that tremendously with people of Wilkes County. My boss was Bonnie Rhodes, and she was the only daughter of the family. She had a whole bunch of brothers, and they all were very instrumental in work at the college. Fred Levitt gave the land that the college was built on to start with.
Really?
He gave the land to them, and therefore he's got a building there called Levitt Hall, and that was named after him because of him giving the land to the college to get it started. So what they done in this community, as far as the Wilkesboro Baptist Church is concerned, Wilkes Community College, and just on and on and on, lots of different things that they were very active in as their company grew and as they grew in the different operations.
So it's the county's largest employer today.
That's correct.
And Ken Nolan and I from time to time talk about what a key model that his relationship with them and the water and the sewer and all the things that are so important to the success of Tyson today is people working together. I think that was a key part of what I've learned from you and from Ken Nolan.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and too, like I said earlier, the plant itself was started as an economic development operation from Wilkesboro, and they sold it off to other people, to the Hedekers and to the Levitts, and then that became what it is today. Yeah. And what it is today is the biggest employer in the county. That is just part of it. The growers are not employees, and the growers are a tremendous amount of economic base that Wilkes County has that are independent farmers, and they are enormously important to the economy of Wilkes County, not only as the employees of Tyson Food is concerned, but also the growers of Tyson.
Yeah. Gerald Lankford, there are other, I guess from the economic development side, virtually everything we see today was the result of this major coming together. And go back to Fred Levitt, this ability he had to pull people together. To me, that's just amazing.
It is amazing. I was there. I seen it. My daddy, he was there. He saw it. My daddy was like I say, he was uneducated. He worked in the furniture factory, and he became a chicken grower. And then he went to work for the Hedekers, and he went to work for the Levitts. And we was all there, and Fred Lovett was a master at getting people together and getting them all going in the same direction. And how he done that, I don't know. You know, I mean, that's a mysterious kind of thing that you see in human beings, is their ability to do things that nobody else can do or nobody else has ever done. And certainly Fred Lovett was one of those.
Now, you remember him driving that one truck?
I do remember.
And coming by your farm and picking up the product? And you said he also would do butter and anything for people to sell?
No, not Fred wouldn't. Fred's daddy, his name was Charlie Lovett, and he started back in the 20s going.
Kind of peddling.
Yeah, peddling. Yeah. He bought butter and eggs and chickens and anything else the farmer had they wanted to sell, and he would put it on his truck, and he would take that to market at Winston-Salem or Charlotte.
Load it in the morning, drive to Winston, sell it, come back that night.
That's right. He done that. Now Fred Lovett and his brothers, they never did do any of that. Mr. Lovett kept doing that way on past when they got into the chicken business otherwise, you see. And Mr. Lovett never did have anything to do with the processing plant or anything like that. He kept doing his business, and he eventually sold his business to J.C. Bumgarner, and they operated it for many years as a egg and primarily an egg business, market egg business.
Okay. What an amazing story. Gerald Lankford, we're coming close to the end in a minute. Tell us about this quality of life, this Fred Lovett influence of just being an honorable man. It's touched so many. Just go back there for me one more time, if you will.
Well, Wilkes County that I remembered in the mid 40s, at the time the war was over, was very poor. People didn't have no places to work, and people didn't have nothing much to do. As kids got out of school or dropped out of school, they usually all went someplace else and left here. And with this poultry business that came up, it give people like me. I went off to college in 1957. I came back in 62 or 3, and I had a job.
An opportunity.
Yeah, I had a job at Holly Farms.
Yeah.
And I worked there for 35 years and was very successful with that. And it meant the difference between a depressed area and
out of depression
and a good place. And of course we've lost good jobs in Wilkes County now, and we've lost some of that bloom that we had, but it's still a really good place to live and a good place to raise your children.
Gerald Lankford, you've honored us today, and I'm so glad you're here. And I want to thank Wilkes Communications and RiverStreet Productions and WIFM and for your willingness to be here and to share your vision and your hope. I just there's a lot of great good feeling that comes out of folks like you who will come here and make this community better by sharing its essence, if you will. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.